I read Love and Bloomed, and while I have a physical copy, I originally thought I was going to listen to this. I ended up pre-ordering and then listening to the audiobook because the narrator was Wesley Siobhan, who I loved so much from Curvy Girl Summer. This is Lucy Eden, who I got to meet at Romance Con and is one of the sweetest humans you will ever meet. So please support her, because like she deserves all the love in the world. This book was an incredibly touching rom-com. It is a rom-com. It sits solidly in that contemporary romance space, but there's a lot of depth to it within this fairly basic plot. Emma, or Emmeline is her first name, inherits the farm of her estranged and recently deceased grandparents. At the same time she inherits this farm, she is fired from her job in PR, and she kind of feels like her relationship with her incredibly long-term partner, boyfriend, not even fiance, is failing. So she goes to the farm many hours from Atlanta where she lives, and she finds Dan, who is the head of the farm. He is in charge. He is the foreman. And we'll get into it. And she and Dan have this almost instant connection. And while she's on the farm, she discovers these secrets from her grandparents. So if you don't want to know, like, don't listen, or just like blah, 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 blah. But her grandparents actually had an illegal, but I'm not 100% sure if it's illegal because they say they work with the hospital, but I believe illegal. It is, but somehow they work with a hospital, but it's still illegal. Marijuana farm. They're growing marijuana in a greenhouse in the back of the property, and they are supplying it to the people of this town who need it for medicine. They're really focused on medical marijuana and supporting and the healing of the humans of this town. So this town, when she arrives, is incredibly suspicious of her, incredibly worried that she's going to sell the farm to a developer or arrest them, like call the cops on them, even though the cops in town know about it, but call someone a little bit bigger. She comes to respect this town and understand the good that her grandparents were doing and really fight against the estrangement her mother caused between her grandparents and her, and therefore Emma. She and Dan, of course, are also developing this relationship, their connection, their chemistry. They open up to each other about their past hurts and their future. And then her boyfriend comes back and tries to ruin it all because he's trash. That's all you get. He's a trash human and no one deserves him. And I will say that I don't remember, it was an audiobook. So number one, Wesley Siobhan, amazing. It did take me a while to get used to her English accent. I don't know if that is the one I would have chosen, but you know what? That's my personal preference. Was it a bad English accent? No, it was just not the area of England I was expecting him to sound like he was from. Does that make sense? That's what you get from me. But I loved it. The spice was good. I always want more spice. I'm always going to want more spice. But I found that I enjoyed the spice that I was given. And you know me with audiobooks, it's just so hard for me to remember, which is why I'm glad I have the physical book so I can go back and read and get some of the details that are in my brain floating around with Wesley Siobhan's beautiful voice and put them a little bit more solidly into context. This is Lucy's first book with Forever. She's got another one coming out next year, and y'all don't sleep on this. Don't sleep on this beautiful, beautiful rom-com. I read Ensnared by Rebecca Quinn because a friend told me it was, I choose romance, and I wanted some. It is less spicy than I thought it was going to be. Look, there is spice. There is spice. There are 5 men and 1 woman. And it's not unspicy. But it took a while to get to the spice, not in a bad way. This is a post-apocalyptic why choose romance. We have Eden, who has been living on her own ever since the event that ended the world, essentially. Like, everything's gone to shit, and she lives alone in the woods by herself. And she has been found by a band of men. She is being chased through the woods. She is running away from them because she's assuming assault. And honestly, she rightly is. She runs into 3 men, Dom, Lucky, Lucky and Bo, and they save her from this ragtag group of men. They take her back to their house. They have a self-sustaining house. Just go with it. Just go with it. It's post-apocalyptic. You have to let go of any realism, honestly, where they live with two other men, Jacob and Jasper. The five of them say, hey, you can stay, absolutely, but we're gonna all fuck you. We're all gonna fuck you. Oh, by the way, we know each other because four of us were in the army. One of us was our psychiatrist, and we all are together because we were in our kink club when the world ended, and so we just kind of found each other. The five of us have been together ever since, and also we are all kinky AF. Welcome, person who has only been with one man, her ex-husband. Technically ex-husband. This is another one of those moments where I love Why Choose because it shows that partners give each other different things, and what we need from one person is not the same thing as another. And I think sometimes when people see polyamory, they don't understand that there's nothing wrong. Number one, there's nothing wrong with polyamory. If you were polyamorous, beautiful, wonderful, I love that for you. But some people don't understand that polyamory can fulfill lots of different things, and that sometimes we need different things from our partners, and that's okay. That's fine. So Eden is figuring her own stuff out. What does she want? What does she like? Both in and out of the bedroom. How does she make herself useful in this space as more than just the bed warmer for these five? But she also starts to fall for them and them for her. It's oddly beautiful, this relationship and these dynamics. There are some really sweet moments. There are some heartbreaking moments. Lucky and Jasper have a history, and dear God Almighty, some of those scenes between the two of them just broke my heart in two, and my notes are just, weeping. This book ends on a cliffhanger. Book 2 is out. Book 3 has no release date, I believe. And so I'm going to put a hold on it because this was a light cliffhanger. It's one of those things where because book 2 is out, I could put myself out of my own misery and read book 2. But I hear book 2 also ends on a cliffhanger. So I'm not going to do it. And that's okay with me. It ends on a cliffhanger. There's nothing wrong with that. And the fact that I know if I really wanted to, I could go get it makes me feel safe. But the fact that book 3 is not out, I know I'm going to have to put it aside until book 3 comes out because I don't want to live that cliffhanger life. If you're someone who is looking to read more about kink, and number one, Rebecca Quinn does a great job saying, hey, there's kink in here, but this is not a how-to guide. Please go look for sources. And there are a lot of discussions about kink and consent and conversation that way that come up in this book. So this is a great book if you want to explore whether or not some kink, gives you the funny feeling in your tummy. It isn't a good book to use as a how-to guide. If you're already practicing kink, maybe you're going to use one of these scenes as an inspiration for something you do with a future partner or a current partner or whatever. But I really liked it for the reason that it involved a lot of different aspects, a lot of different types of kink, but the author before it, not at the end, not an author's note at the end, but an author's note at the beginning, stated very clearly that this was not a how-to guide, but it was still great. I read Corporate Mandated Holiday Romance by Nellie Wilson. This is a great holiday novella if you also feel very anti-capitalist feelings at this time of year, which is totally valid. If you feel very anti-capitalist feelings right now, I highly recommend this book. Brooklyn has just started her dream job at her dream eco-friendly company with a CEO she's idolized for years and years. She wanted to go into environmental protection. She's been in marketing. It's not bad. She's done jobs, made a living, whatever, but she was so excited about starting this job with a company that she believes in. Except on her first day, she meets the CEO and he is totally skeevy. Like 1,000% skeevy starts hitting on her right away. And she goes, what? And then she reads an email from him to the marketing department. Hey, I need you to make this presentation about this thing. And she thinks to herself, that's not how what we do here really works. I know I'm in marketing, but I also have an environmental background. I know what this looks like. I don't understand how this is happening. So she immediately thinks something is fishy. Her roommate dated the sister of this guy named Max. And when she tells her roommate all about this, all about her feelings, the skeevy CEO, the weird work, the the weird, not cool corporate stuff going on, she says, hey, well, Max is an investigative journalist. You should talk to him about what you feel, and he might be a good resource for what to do next. So she meets up with Max, and not only is there chemistry, but he immediately believes her story and goes, we are going to get to the bottom of this together. So she is his inside girl on the job, spying on this corporation. And in order for Max to get access to the company, to meet people, to start talking and making connections outside of her, she and Max pose as a fake couple. They fake date so that he can come to all of the holiday events happening at this time of year with the company. There are a lot of them. And so we watch them go to these events. They fake date. They have coffee. They meet up. They talk. They plan. They spy. And they build not only this absolutely badass case against the CEO and company, but they also build a relationship between each other. I loved this. Max is Jewish, and one of the things that Nellie says in her author's note at the beginning is this novella is entirely from Brooklyn's point of view because she didn't feel comfortable presenting a point of view that is not hers, specifically as Jewish as she wanted to make Max, as deep into that culture and that religion and those practices. But she did a lot of research. She had beta testers, she had people that she reached out to, and I loved going along Brooklyn's journey, learning about Judaism. There are moments when, Max will say something and Brooklyn's inner monologue goes, I'm pretty sure that's a holiday, because he mentions doing a lot of things, a lot of holidays that he follows and he practices. I'm going to go look that up. And she meets friends. She goes to Shabbos dinner. They talk about various aspects of his Judaism. And I loved being along for the ride of this new religion to Brooklyn. I loved being in her mind for that, because I think that's how a lot of people feel when they meet someone who is not from the same cultural background. And what Brooklyn does is exactly what we should do, which is, okay, hey, there are things that my friend, my potential partner, my current partner are mentioning. Instead of putting the onus on them to explain or made to feel other by like, I don't understand that. That's not what happens nowadays. Doing the research. And it also opened up Brooklyn's eyes to how the world treats anyone who's different. At one of the parties, they're doing an auction and they auction off a ham, and the person who wins it is also Jewish and goes, I can't take that home. I keep kosher, which is not all Jews, but her in particular. So you brought something that potentially someone could meet. And not just if you're Jewish, but if you're halal, if you're a vegetarian, if you're plant-based, there are lots of different scenarios. And so it made me really happy to watch Brooklyn go on this journey and have her eye open. Also, do they get the bad guy? They get the bad guy. They get the bad guy. Yes, they do. And I thought it was just a perfect anti-capitalism holiday romance at a time when capitalism just shoves itself down your throat so hard. It made me feel a little freer. I listened to Belladonna by Adeline Grace. I heard the audiobook was great. It's a single narrator, which is one of the mediums or ways of performing that I find most palatable. And so I decided to give it a try. This I thought was young adult. I would say it's new adult. Signa Farrow is the point of view character that we get in this story. She's been touched by death her whole life. She sees death, she sees ghosts, she cannot die, in fact. She has accidents, she drinks poison, and she goes into this kind of in-between space where she sees death, but she herself cannot die. Her body heals itself, and she just wakes up back in the same space. She has a very rough history with death. She has very big feelings about him as an entity in her life because she feels like she's been followed by death. Her parents die when she's just a few months old, and she goes between all of these relatives who only really want her for her fortune. She has a massive fortune, and if you're entrusted with her care, you get a stipend from the massive trust. And that's pretty much all these guardians look for and use her for. The story starts by her most recent guardian dying. I don't even want to get into how, and she goes to her next guardian, which is actually not a family member, but a family member's late husband, son, and daughter. She goes to this new family who is also very wealthy, and she is honestly, for the first time in her life, truly cared for. They invest in her future. They invest in her education. She is welcomed, not super warm by the brother and sister, but by the dad, who is mourning the loss of his late wife. There's a lot of drama going on in this house. So she has a lot of fear because his late wife recently died. His daughter is dying of what seems to be the same affliction, and she can tell, she can feel death's presence in this house. And so she is determined to save her cousin and thwart death. She is helped by a servant at the house, and she tries to figure out the mystery of this. It's really a mystery. If you like mysteries, this is great. If you love romance, I will say this is very light on the romance. Most people will tell you that she takes belladonna berries so that she can see death in a romantic way. I didn't find that. She really hates death. She really tries to stay away from him at the beginning of this story. So the whole belladonna berries in her pocket, they don't come into play for a while. This is so lightly spiced. I'm not even sure if they're intimate, her, and I'm not even going to tell you who. So I'm still green peppering this, because there's no spice on page. There's nothing going on. I know that there are 2 more books in this series. I found this was a perfect book for me to listen to because it was low stakes, low action, and very easy to follow in terms of world building. For me, that made it a really successful audiobook. Do I feel compelled to race to the next book? Not necessarily, but if I'm looking for an audiobook and I can't figure out what to do next, I probably will listen to the next one. I have massive feelings about this book, Small Magics, which is part of the Kate Daniels series by Ilona Andrews. I have massive feelings about this book. I'm going to talk about A Questionable Client first, which is one of the short stories here. I want to get into Kate Daniels by Ilona Andrews. She's one of those PNR authors that I missed back in the day, but I love. I love those kind of never-ending tales of PNR that you don't see much anymore. No one's doing that anymore. And I understand why. If you go to Ilona Andrews' website, you see Small Magics as the first book in the Kate Daniels world, and I honestly didn't read the fine print. This is a collection of short stories from the world, but the story she's talking about is just one. It's just called A Questionable Client. And I didn't realize that because we're gonna wait. A Questionable Client is a prequel story where we are introduced to Kate Daniels. Kate Daniels is the point of view character in this series that is to follow. At the time of the story, she's a mercenary. She gets hired to be a bodyguard last minute on a job. It is a lot of money, and she says, sure, why not? Okay, I need money. Shows up at this absolutely fancy house, and it turns out that the person she's bodyguarding is named Simon. He is suffering from ingesting a magical object, and he is also being hunted by people who want that magical object and also want to hunt him because of some deceit that he made. He is a shapeshifter. He can change his appearance to be male, to be female, to be whatever. And he has done some very morally gray things. Let's just put it that way. Some very morally gray things to get this magical object. So Kate Daniels is fighting off various creatures, various magical people in order to help him, and then the story ends. So we're introduced to Kate, her badassery, kind of the world of Kate Daniels, what's going on, and then this character who comes into play in the first book. How do I know that? Because I already read the first book. Here's what I'm going to say about the story. The story by itself, totally fine. I actually really liked it. So this anthology came out in 2015. A Questionable Client, the actual short story, first appeared in 2013, but Magic Bites, the first story, came out in 2007. And so when we meet Simon, that character, we get a different history in the first book, which annoyed me to no end. There's so many ways that you could have made that match, but it didn't. And so that I would not start with A Questionable Client, quite honestly, because that part made me mad. Kate Daniels is in a kind of post-apocalyptic dystopian world where magic and tech are warring against each other. So you get a lot of PNR characters. And then here's the other thing about this book. So number one, I didn't read the fine print on the website that says it's A Questionable Client, the story within Small Magics that you need to read. But within this book, Small Magics, it's not even in order. number one, isn't a table of contents for what story is coming in what order, and they're not in chronological order. So I started just reading this because I'm assuming someone with some sort of thought put this together, and I'm now at a story, and I've heard what happens with Kate Daniels later in the series because I wrote a story that was first in this anthology that took place later in the world. So what I wish, if Kate Daniels is getting a rebrand, whoever is rebranding this, please put explanations. Number one, a table of contents. Number two, at the beginning of each story, put where it falls into the rest of the world, because there are more stories from different points of view of different characters that are clearly going to ruin things for me. And I really did not enjoy it. So was the story itself fine? Great. It was. I really enjoyed the story. Did it make sense when I then read the book and had to read that description of how she met that character? No, because it doesn't match with that story. And I didn't even finish this anthology because I don't want to ruin things for me in the future. So there you have it. A questionable client, a great story. Don't read it necessarily before Magic Bites because it doesn't match up in the same way as the description you get in Magic Bites. I'll talk about Magic Bites later. This was like coming home for me. It is Magic Bites by Ilona Andrews, which is book one officially in the Kate Daniels series. It gives me like real throwbacks to Anita Blake because this starts out without a love interest. I have a feeling this is going to be a beautiful, beautiful slow burn. And those of you who have read Kate Daniels, you can let me know if I am correct in that assumption of the burn of this. So there's no spice. No one's getting busy in this book at all. The world of Kate Daniels is a dystopian magical future where magic and tech come and go in waves, and every couple hours, multiple times a day, the waves shift where sometimes tech works and sometimes magic rules. And so you've got both cars and horses and electricity and fairy lights and shifters and vampires, and the lore, the mythology, the rules of this world are so fascinating to me. Kate, when we meet her, is a mercenary, and her father figure has been murdered. So she goes to the guild. It doesn't really matter if you know what these words are, just the place where he worked, the guild, and signs up with the people he worked with to find his murderer. Along the way, we are introduced to all sorts of creatures and capable people in this world. It's based in Atlanta. She apologizes. Ilona Andrews apologizes because she destroys Atlanta. Atlanta is destroyed. The world is destroyed, but because we're in Atlanta, we see all of that. The cast of characters of PNR varieties that exist in this world are really well introduced in this story. We don't quite know what Kate is. Her parentage is not quite revealed. That is a mystery that we will most likely have revealed at some point later in the series. And she meets and interacts most with Curran, the lion shapeshifter leader of the pack in Atlanta. The pack is what they call all the shapeshifters who live, work, exist together, and they follow this code. It's really kind of cool. I have a feeling that's going to be her love interest for a number of reasons, but they also have some really nice, fun banter. I thought this did a great job of setting up the world. The story was compelling. Her need to find the murderer of her father figure, who it ended up being, how we got there. The fights were exciting. It was a very well-developed PNR world. Because it's the first book in a series, I know I have so much more to go. So am I going to give it 5 stars? Absolutely not, because there are mysteries to uncover and there's no spice. I want a little bit more spice. But am I going to continue with this series? Yeah, because it kind of feels like home to me, and that's really exciting. So if you have been looking for a new PNR series, if you don't mind a long book, there are 10 books in the full series, and I believe there's the series itself, which is 10 books, and then there's the World of Kate Daniels, which has some anthologies and other things going on, like Small Magics, if you saw that review. Well then, this was a really exciting kind of first step into this world for me. I've been finding a few series from Way Beyond that I missed at the time of them coming out. It makes me sad that I missed them, but it makes me excited that I get to read them, and I get to learn about them and be a spectator in these worlds now with all the knowledge and excitement that I have for them. So if you are a Kate Daniels fan, follow along. I'm going to try and read these. I have a project that I'm going to bring up at the beginning of 2025, maybe the end of 2024. So I'm not 100% sure, but make sure that you follow along and you'll get to decide what happens for me next year with some of these series. Kate is also such a badass. She's such a powerful female character. She is a warrior. She does not need anyone to protect her. Not only can she fight physically, she has a sword. She has a broadsword. It's a magical broadsword, but she also has magical abilities that we don't know about yet. I don't understand them, but not in a bad way, not in a plot hole kind of way, but in an, ooh, this mystery is going to be so good kind of way. I read Fate of the Sun King. It's by Nisha J. Tooley. It is book 3 in the Artifacts of Oronos series. Oh man, waiting for book 4. This is the book that to me felt the most like the middle book in a series, because the first book was The Bride Trials. The second book, spoilers, sorry, was what happens when she's kidnapped from there and then taken on this quest with Nadir. And this book felt like putting a lot of pieces in place for the 4th book to start. But I don't mean that in a bad way, because there was a lot that happened in this book. Nadir and Lore admit that they're mates for each other. They finally get together. I appreciated the part in the author's note at the beginning where she announces that the burn is finally over, that the slow burn is done, and they finally get together, because I think I needed to hear that. Also, she is so clever. Nisha J. Tooley is very clever and very snarky, even in the character descriptions. Okay, so she has this cast of characters at the beginning, and like, just to, hey, remind you of who everyone is, and I'm gonna go with Atlas. Here, Atlas. If you've forgotten who Atlas is, no, there's no way you did. The Sun King, master manipulator, got Lore out of Nostraza to compete in the trials for some mysterious reason that maybe you find out in this book. Not blonde, despite everyone comparing him to a certain High Lord of Spring. If you know, you know. Oh. I love that. I love how snarky and self-aware she is, and that comes across in her characters. So Lore, Nadir, and the cohorts are going to Emphelion, the Sun Kingdom, to go back to the mirror. She has the heart crown, and the mirror said, hey, there's going to be something that I can give you once you have the crown. Amazing, wonderful. They got to figure out how to get in there. They have to figure out what's going on. They have a lot of interpersonal stuff. We get more of the history of her grandmother, Lore's grandmother, Cerce, Cerce, that broke the world. We meet some of that, and we also get these new flashbacks. So I thought maybe we were going to get more flashbacks from her grandmother, even though at the end of the last book, she basically dies. But no, we get these new characters, these new High Kings. And yes, I had to take notes. I had a little post-it in the back for these point of views and who they were all from, because I was confused about what was going on. And we learn more about how the magic system in this world actually was created and how it works in a little more detail, in an important detail. There's something really refreshing about two people who both feel broken, who are determined to love each other anyway. And Lore and Nadir are those people. They are not perfect. They have a lot of baggage. There's even baggage that they haven't felt ready to share with the other yet. And they know and they accept each other in those moments. This book ends on a massive cliffhanger, as I knew it would. I was prepared, but hey, to ruin it, like, I'm going to pick up my copy of Fate of the Sun King right now, and so I don't have to wait that long. You don't either. It's out. It's out. You don't have to wait for the conclusion of this story. So if you are someone who doesn't like to end on a cliffhanger where you're going to have to wait a while, you don't have to. You should go read the next one. I did feel like a lot of the story set up the next one, but in a way that made me excited for the next book, not in a way that made me bored to read this one or wish that this one would go faster. I just don't feel emotionally safe with her. I don't. I'm talking about Sierra Simone and American Prince. It's up there too. I don't feel emotionally safe. American Queen was rough. American Queen had a lot in there. It made me feel so deeply and so uncomfortably, but I got through it. And there's a reason why. I am going into a deep dive of the whole new Camelot series with Haley on the podcast later this month. So I am I am reading all of them. I'm going to put myself through that. Because this is going to be a really big podcast episode, I'm not going to go in depth here. I'm just going to inspire you to start the new Camelot series. Number one, read the new Camelot series if you love Sierra Simone and you just haven't gotten to it. You will like this. I feel like it is very much Sierra Simone. Number two, read the new Camelot series if you like your heart ripped out of your soul deeply, like just torn asunder and thrown on the floor with the hope, just the hope that it's going to be put back together again. Number three, if you like some really well-written kink, it is. This is a very kinky book. Kink is a foundational part of the story, the relationships between these three main characters, Greer, Ash, and Embry. Read this story if you like an MMF. Greer, Ash, and Embry. It's not a love triangle. It's a polycule. They're all together. Read this story if you want to understand what I'm talking about when I release this podcast episode later in the month. You have time. There's American Queen, then American Prince, then American King. All three books are out. There's no waiting. I believe the only thing is the audiobooks are being re-recorded. So if you are an audiobook person, you cannot listen to them right now. I haven't found them in the normal places because my understanding is they pulled the old recordings of most of them, of at least the first two, though the third might be up there, so that they can be re-recorded with a new vision. I am not okay after having read this book. People, I was reading it in public around dear people to me, and they were concerned because I just kept gasping. Audibly gasping aloud. Therefore, I purposely did not read this book in public. Yeah. Couldn't do it. Wish me luck.